Okay, one more variation on the bowline here. I was taught this is called the 2-on-1 bowline. There might be a 2-loop bowline or other names for this. I was told 2-on-1 bowline. The idea of this rigging I'm about to do would be essentially grabbing two marginal anchors, bringing them together so I'm sharing the load, and this will give me a fixed rope to rappel on or run my main line off of, or something along those lines. This is just for demonstration purposes. I've just got a couple small aluminum carabiners here hanging underneath this bucket truck, and these would not be the marginal anchors I would grab. I'm talking about maybe some trees or something along those lines, but this is a way of possibly sharing that load a little bit. So I'm going to come in from the outside of the first, on my left side here, come in from the outside of that first anchor, and I'm going to pull quite a lot of tail through here, so I've got enough to do my, my knot. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to form my tree in my hole, the traditional rabbit hole with the tree. Okay, the tree's facing me. I'm going to form that about where I want that knot to be. And I'll grab the tail. It's going to come up underneath the, up through the hole, around the tree, and back down the hole. And you'll see that I'm ending with the tail on the inside of the bowline loop, and as I pull all that slack through, you'll see the bowline a little more clear. Okay, so there's my bowline. Here's my tails on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and now go to my second anchor point, and I'm finding that if I rig it this way, even though it crosses over here, goes to my second anchor point, it comes out nice and clean at the end. One other thing you might notice I'm doing is I've started on the outside, now I've gone to the inside. My next strand is going to be inside and coming out on the outside of my two anchor points. Okay? This tail here is going to follow back this strand, coming up through this hole. Here again, here's my hole, here's my tree. Coming up through the hole, around the tree, and here you can see this is where I'm adjusting where I'm going to end up with that knot. It's almost like I'm deflecting that knot here. One thing I'm watching for is this critical angle here. The more that angle increases, I get to about 120 degrees. If I had that knot up here, that critical angle, 120 degrees, that means I'm putting 100% of my load on both of these two marginal anchors. And at that point, I've defeated the purpose of using two marginal anchors. So, rule of thumb, I'm going to want to keep that angle on the inside. About 90 degrees is about as far as I want to go. And that's about a 70, 75, I think it's 71% of the load hits both anchors. All right. In this configuration here, just for this purpose, I'm going to kind of show you, this is where I want my knot, for instance. Okay, get that set where I want it. I'm going to follow around the tree and right back down the hole again, just like you would do the bowline. Okay? At this point, I'm going to do my Yosemite finish to finish off this knot to make it safe to use for rescue loads. I could grab just those two strands right here, but I prefer to grab all three that are right there. It seems to come out a lot cleaner at the end. And my tail is going to sneak right through, following up the tree. Once I dress that out nice, take all the slack out of the system. Enough tail sticking out where I'm not worried about it getting sucked in or anything like that. The back side of the knot's a nice and clean look, no crosses. I've now got a fixed line that I can use to rappel on or run a fixed belay or something along those lines. Okay, again, these are not locked off. This is just for demonstration purposes up here. Now, if I want to use this as a rigging point, I got to do something slightly different. So I'm going to back this tail out. Slowly, one more variation here. Again, I can do two marginal anchors here, or if I had two bomb-proof anchors, this works really nice in confined space rigging where I might have a space right here that a worker might be doing a vertical entry in, and I've got anchors here and I've got anchors here, and I don't have a place directly above the space. And let's say I want to run a muncher hitch belay while he climbs in and out of a space on a ladder. Okay, so this gives me the option of getting a rigging point directly above that space. So what I've got to do here is I'm going to back this tail out. I'm going to feed in a little more slack because I need longer a longer tail for this next configuration. So I'm going to pull more slack in here, and this is what's nice about the bowline, is I can get this exactly where I want it without having to untie anything. I'm just going to follow that slack all the way through until it gets back to my tail that I need here. Still get that same start. Okay, so now I want it right about there. Again, watching this critical angle here, keeping this under 90 degrees. Anything more than 120 is you're putting too much hit on those anchors. Again, 90 degrees is our critical point we're looking for. Now, instead of running just the tail through like I did before, I'm going to double that tail up into a bight. I'm going to need a nice long bight here to do this. I'm going to treat this essentially as that tail. I'm going to open up that hole just a little bit. I'm going to follow this back through just as I did before. And again, here's my adjustments up and down until I get exactly where I want things. I can see right here this tail is going to be a little on the long side. I'll pull it out a little bit more. Okay, again, around the tree and right back down the hole again. It does start to get a little cluttered at this point, so you practice the other way a couple times and you get pretty comfortable with it, and you can see what we're doing here. Again, I'm going to do my Yosemite finish. The only thing that's a little bit different here is I'm going to go ahead and wrap that tail also. So as I'm going to come around, I'm going to wrap that tail plus those 3 strands all the way around. You can see this knot starting to get kind of big now, but we're at the end. It's no big deal. Take that final bight and I'm going to follow it through right here, just like my Yosemite finish I just did. Pull all my slack out of the system. There's a lot of different strands to get nice and snug down here. Okay. At the end, I've got a nice, clean, orderly dressed knot. This tail may be a little longer than what I would normally go for, as long as I've got enough for, you know, a palm's width or so. If you're worried about that tail coming out and you got this much length, I guess you can throw an overhand knot in that. That tail's not going to get sucked in, but if you have a hard time with that, you can throw a knot in there or whatever just to keep that from getting sucked in. The nice thing about this now is I've got a rigging point that I can use. I can hang a mainline system here. I can use this as a travel restrict connection point if I'm working out near an edge. I've got this other end of the rope that I can now utilize for, say, my munter hitch belay. So, because I thought ahead and bought a 2-ended rope, don't be afraid to use that second end of the rope to do what I need. Let's say I need to make a connection point to my worker. I can tie him in with a Yosemite bowline, for instance. That can be the connection point to the harness of the worker that's going to climb down into the space. I can grab a carabiner here. I can make my munter hitch belay. This is just one example of what I can do with it here. And now I've got a place that I can belay. This is a small carabiner for this big 1/2-inch rope, but you get the idea. I can belay that worker in and out of that space with the same end of the rope, and as long as I've got enough rope here in a pile on the ground to do my work, and again, this is all just a mess over here, but this is just for demonstration. As long as I get enough rope to get them in and out of the space, I can utilize both ends of the rope here, and all I've got into this whole system at this point is a couple, 3 carabiners and 1 piece of the rope. And I've anchored and running my belay. So this is one example. There's lots of different variations on this knot. There's lots of different ways you can do it, and you can do 2, 3, 4 different strands if you want. Okay, so again, 2-on-1 bowline. Thanks.